Namaste, and welcome to our continuing series, Explorations in Savitri, with our beloved Alok. Namaste. Today we continue Book 3, the Book of the Divine Mother, Canto 4, the Vision and the Boon. And we are on page 343, just at the top, pretty
Yes.
much.
I just thought we'll just spend 5 minutes and read a passage. It's a 3 page note by Sri Aurobindo on the Sikh Gurus. Now, we know that something is going on in that area, both something beautiful and an effort to once again drag the entire movement towards something very dark, yes. And we were talking about the Sri Aurobindo's installation of Sri Aurobindo's relics, and within a couple of months, the demolition of the Babri Masjid. There is another incident which took place with the installation of, closely connected with the installation of relics. So I was during that time posted in Patiala at the peak of militancy, soon after Blue Star, there was curfew after 7, and still we would go and work in the center for almost till late 9 o'clock. And almost it was an everyday thing, because after 7 p.m. you can't travel, you can't be out. So I'll come on scooter, the inspector will stop me, I'll show my wing commander or the squadron leader card, and he will say, you sir, please just get down on the scooter and walk a few steps, that kind of state. And a terrorist actually came and threatened when we were wanting to celebrate the 15th August that, we have heard, and if something happens, don't blame us. So we said we are Mother Kali's children and we are going ahead. What you have to do, you do. What we have to do, we'll do. So they came and we had the celebration, and 6 of them came. Then after some time they went away. We didn't call any police protection, though we were, asked to call by all the wise men who talk and sleep. Call the police. We said, if the Lord cannot protect us, what police will protect? But I suppose it depends that time, that fervor and faith. We said, we don't care. Maybe also that Air Force blood, and you feel like. So they went away. The main person who had come to threaten actually became a devotee. Then militancy continued. Then when Sri Aurobindo's relics came finally to that place, that story is also amazing, because the car ran for nearly, must be about 50 kilometers without any petrol in it. These are facts. I am not going into detail. The driver who came, he just Babaji some relics, so they were kept inside, and then after some time he rushed into the place where the relics were kept, and he said, "Where is Babaji's?" So people said, okay, he did matha tekna, as they say. Then what happened? Suddenly he says, I just realized my petrol pipe has been cut. And from Delhi I have been feeling something is amiss. So I just don't know how we have reached. So he was so full of... Yeah, this is a real living miracle witnessed by many persons. But the best part was that the relics were installed. Within 15 days, 700 plus militants surrendered. And that was the end of militancy in Punjab. So, it is something very special. And here is Sri Aurobindo speaking about, India is like a triangle, and he speaks about the way spiritual consciousness has been seeded and it was kept alive even during the peak of, the subjugation of India to different rulers. So he says, in the 3 corners of this triangular peninsula have risen 3 great cultures close towards the decline of the Mughal rule. Maharashtra awakening of the south, the Vaishnava revival of the east, and the Sikh culture of the northwest. Each has its distinctive feature and an element to add to the national store of spiritual culture. Ramdas and Tukaram and a host of other mighty spiritual giants created in Maharashtra by their tapas a great self-conscious Hindu nation, which it was given to Shivaji to organize and lead. Vaishnavism brought a flood of love which rolled like a sweet torrent of nectar over Bengal and penetrated even beyond the Vindhyas into the south, with Sri Chaitanya in the Panchnadi, that is Punjab, the sacred land of the five rivers. Guru Nanak cemented the hearts of the Hindus and Musliman in the name of Alak Niranjan, and this laid another foundation stone to the mighty edifice of Indian nation building. And then he goes on to say it's a very powerful passage. Maybe in January, Tuesday, Hall of Harmony class we'll read. But just to come to one small passage, he speaks about the gift of the Sikh culture. He speaks of all the cultures and the gifts. The greatest gift of the Sikhs to the nation is their firm rooted Guru Bhav. In the midst of the diadem of Sikh culture, like a ring of Kohinoors, stands the cluster of mighty gurus. Now, Kohinoor, of course, we know that it was the great Sikh warrior Maharaja Ranjit Singh who had the diadem. It was he who had, it was gifted away, then he once again got it, then finally the Britishers just carried it away. So it was like a ring of Kohinoors. So look at it, he's saying India had not one Kohinoor. The real Kohinoors, which were like clusters. Really, the intense and solid line of spiritual power which Guru Nanak founded in the heart of the Sikh sub-nation is unexampled in any history of any nation. He has spoken of the Sikh society as the first attempt to create a spiritualized society. And they use the word Sangat. And they're very simple doctrines like, share everything. If you go to a Sikh Gurudwara, there is a langar going on, and at time anybody comes, he can walk in and he eat. No questions asked, no money to be paid, rich, poor, everybody comes, sits on the floor and eats. It's a very beautiful thing to, practice. Sikh history rings throughout with the glorious war cry, Sri Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh. That history is a splendid record of the heroic careers of the great gurus. Nowhere else do we find or hear of any such brilliant record of a whole nation growing round one central chain of spiritual personalities with unabated faith and unfaltering consecration from its day of startup to the present day. So, it's something very beautiful and something from everywhere we can draw inspiration. And how Sri Aurobindo speaks of the heroic saints and sages. So, saints and sages were not just people sitting in meditation. This concept that has come, and turning everything into ultimately a meditation center with an inner life. They were heroic people. And imagine getting the tribute from Sri Aurobindo, what it means. And yet, we come back to what is yet undone. So, while remembering the past, we must move towards the future. And that future, Sri Aurobindo reveals to us what is yet to be done. So, all this, their blood, their sacrifice of masters and heroes and avatars down the ages, not just millenniums. If you go by Indian record of history, Pralayas, Yugas, Chatur Yugas, there have been 6 of them. And that's where Sri Aurobindo says, one place very interestingly, in this Chatur Yuga at least, the mantle of, holding the flame is with India. In this Chatur Yuga, we don't know what happened in the previous one. Some of these cycles have been worked out in probably other planets. Passingly, Sri Aurobindo mentions. So it is, in Indian record of history is amazing, when you go into real past. So we continue on page 343. This strange, irrational product of the mire, this compromise between the beast and God, this is us. Strange, irrational product of the mire. Basically, dust and mud has evolved into man. Very irrational, because dust has none of the components that man has. This is a big question that science grapples with. The missing links in terms of the evolutionary leaps. There is no consciousness. It's called the gap of understanding. You are explaining something on the basis of something else which does not contain, like dust, if we go strictly scientifically. Well, in Sri Aurobindo's vision, it contains within it consciousness, that's why it can evolve. It contains within its mind life. But otherwise, if you see strictly scientifically, there is no life in matter. We are taught living and non living, and yet life springs forth. There is no mind in dust, and yet mind springs forth. There is apparently no consciousness, yes, consciousness springs forth. So irrational. Irrational if you consider the strictly material formula.
In the Christian faith, we have the line ashes to ashes and dust to dust.
Yes. It's famous lines of Umar Khayyam also. Dust unto dust and under dust to lie. Sans wine, sans song, sans singer, sans end. So this is how it has been, and yet man has emerged. This compromise between the beast and God. Sri Aurobindo at another place says he has few impulses of a God. Man. Largely nature is driven by the operating system installed in it, software with the coming of animal creation. So our cells still react to fear, to rage, to anxieties immediately. But they don't react to peace, to joy, to the healing vibrations, to harmony. That is a big challenge in healing by spiritual ways. Because it's not just about, if you use the word, pushing consciousness into the cells. The cells don't want to receive, they shut the doors. They shut the doors. They shut prematurely. Even God is kept out. So this is the problem, because the cells react immediately to fear, to anger, to animal, reactions. This compromise between the beast and God is not the crown of thy miraculous world. This world is a miracle. Where do we want to see a miracle? A little seed becomes a mighty tree. A little gene turns into a hero and a sage. What more miracle do we want to see? It's an everyday miracle. I know there shall inform the inconscient cells at one with nature and at height with heaven. A spirit vast as the containing sky. Look at the now cell built largely by inconscient. Little bit of matter within it, small little. You can't even measure the size. It goes into microns. And what will be filling it? He's saying, I know. And this cell, one with nature and at height with heaven, a spirit vast as the containing sky. This is the miracle for which we await, which is going to happen.
Here we go deeply, we can hear Sri Aurobindo's voice. He says on the previous page, I know that thy creation cannot fail. And again he says now, I know there shall inform the inconscient cells.
And then come these two marvelous lines. And swept with ecstasy from invisible founts, a God come down and greater by the fall. Taking a human birth will be a glory when the supramental is established here. Even the gods will covet it. Right now they don't want, because it's, becoming a human means restricting. Even when the gods are born in a human form, they experience the extreme degree of limitation. They are put in jail. They can't operate based on their, Apple software, because the apple has been eaten and man is here, losing his celestial powers. But to go beyond the gods, you have to take the touch of this clay. And when this clay itself is supramentalized, imagine, for the gods to come down from their high heavens will actually be a heightening and greatening of all that they can experience. It's a direct contact with the Supreme. which is not possible even for the great God. So it's
Once Aurobindo Basu gave an entire lecture on that line.
yes,
A God come down and greater by the fall.
yes. There are several layers in this line. A power arose out of my slumber's cell, abandoning the tardy limp of the hours and the inconstant blink of mortal sight, there where the thinker sleeps in too much light. You know what is known as susupti. Susupti is not the highest, but almost. After that, you have the turiya, where all these three layers are together. Something you can't speak of. But susupti is where none of our normal operating consciousness can remain awake. Mental consciousness will register nothing. You come back from that trance and there is nothing which you recall because you can't. But when the mother came to Sri Aurobindo, met him, she said, "What is this thing in India that people call trance? Where they become totally unconscious of the material world and everything, even of the inside, when they come back, they experience bliss, but nothing else. I have never experienced it." And Sri Aurobindo says, "Nor have I." And then he says, because we could remain conscious all through, at all the planes together. It's an impossibility. I mean, up till now, to be in the trance of bliss and the supermind, even a touch of it, not, of course, no one enters the supermind, but even if you just have a glimpse of it, you can't remain conscious of this material world and it's going on. But the Divine Mother says that, she was conscious even of the ticking of the clock, the thoughts of people around, their movements, even while she was in the highest state. Very often she would go in trance, sometimes with her hand kept on someone. Mm-hmm. And people have recalled, Amyoda was here and he used to tell what was his name, brother of this Ganguly's, not Robida, one more, anyways. So he would tell me, he said, once, mother kept her hand on my shoulders. She was to give the flower. And suddenly she went into trance. I was just leaning like this. So I said, it must have been, he said, yes, 45 minutes of bliss. I was hoping she does not come out of this state. It's super ecstasy, just imagine. And this was quite often. She would suddenly, in the middle of a sentence, this she used to have even as a child. She recalls an incident where she was having food and she was told by her mother, physical mother, now you see, behave well, because the counselor is coming, means like our collector sahab. Mayor is coming, you please, don't go into one of your... So she lifted the fork and midway, suddenly she found the whole sight very amusing. And she went into that state. But she would remember everything that is happening. She never had that kind of trance where she loses contact with earthly reality, which we'll find throughout in Sri Aurobindo's, even in Savitri. In the highest state also, there is a connect and a link.
And often mother would get a call from someone.
Yes.
When she went into trance and she would come to help them.
Yes, that also she has mentioned, that, someone called and so many times the calls would come. Most of the time she would do it in a universal consciousness. But sometimes it was a special intervention. There where the thinker sleeps in too much light and intolerant flames the lone all-witnessing eye, hearing the word of fate from silence heart in the endless moment of eternity. It saw from timelessness the works of time. Now, when Sri Aurobindo is describing of the vision he has had from that plane where the thinker sleeps in too much light, he is not saying, I saw, because there is no I. It saw. It is Sri Aurobindo who has seen, but Sri Aurobindo in that state Where the thinker is asleep, there is no more any kind of identity that you can ascribe. And he remembers what he has seen. The whole plan has been disclosed to him. So maybe, you can.
It saw from timelessness the works of time. Overpast were the leaden formulas of the mind. Overpowered the obstacle of mortal space. The unfolding image showed the things to come. And this passage I cannot break up, so I'll read it full and then you can take
Then I
line by
will,
line.
yes.
A giant dance of Shiva tore the past. There was a thunder as of worlds that fall. Earth was o'errun with fire and the roar of death, clamoring to slay a world his hunger had made. There was a clangor of destruction's wings. The Titan's battle cry was in my ears. Alarm and rumor shook the armored night. I saw the omnipotent's flaming pioneers over the heavenly verge which turns towards life, come crowding down the amber stairs of birth, forerunners of a divine multitude. Out of the paths of the morning star they came, into the little room of mortal life. I saw them cross the twilight of an age, the sun-eyed children of a marvelous dawn, the great creators with wide brows of calm, the massive barrier breakers of the world, and wrestlers with destiny in her lists of will, the laborers in the quarries of the gods, the messengers of the incommunicable, the architects of immortality. Into the fallen human sphere they came, faces that wore the immortal's glory still, voices that communed still with the thoughts of God, bodies made beautiful by the Spirit's light, carrying the magic word, the mystic fire, carrying the Dionysian cup of joy, approaching eyes of a diviner man, lips chanting an unknown anthem of the soul, feet echoing in the corridors of time. High priests of wisdom, sweetness, might, and bliss, discoverers of beauty's sunlit ways, and swimmers of love's laughing fiery floods, and dancers within rapture's golden doors. Their tread one day shall change the suffering earth and justify the light on nature's face.
Powerful passage, actually. And it's difficult to speak after such a wonderful passage. And I think we missed a line, so I'll take up from there. In the endless moment of eternity, it saw from timelessness the works of time. So all is revealed, the entire plan. So if somebody would ask from Sri Aurobindo, how do you know that the supramental is going to come? He has explained at places the logically and every which way. But he could simply say, well, because I saw it. From where did you see it? From that point which is outside creation, outside time. From where you see the unfolding of time. That's how it is that one day of the gods is equal to 1,000,000 years on earth. So it implies that they live in vast spaces of time. You see, there is a point where space and time begin to collapse and merge. That's why when you measure huge distances of space, you measure in terms of the distance traveled by light, the speed of light. You see, it even physically, there is a point where they begin to even physically, it's impossible to conceive that boundlessness of space. So you bring in that factor, that how much time travels, traveling through time. So that's how, at one place, Sri Aurobindo, when he describes in the greater mind, huge time loops emerging from eternity.
Eternity.
So he is seeing the cycles of creation merge and go back. What that seeing would be. He describes that eye, intolerant flame of that eye from which he is watching the works.
And very rarely he speaks of himself.
Yeah.
Even in Savitri.
Yeah.
And in Life Divine, he'll say, it might be, this might come.
All through. In Synthesis also, the only place you will find in Sri Aurobindo's early works where he does use the word I a little bit is Secret of the Vedas.
Yes.
And that's because he's describing that when I came here, people spoke of the Aryan Dravidian, but I myself didn't find any difference. I could see that, and he compares the physiological structures. So we should be very careful, something which Sri Aurobindo has repeatedly insisted, that there is no difference. So we as their children should not try to create a difference by, oh, these people and that people. It's a very, and I personally feel that since we are at it, that, people of Tamil Nadu are blessed, and I feel eternally grateful to those who gave land to Sri Aurobindo and the mother. I mean, for that one deed, 10,000 things can be kept aside. And there is so much bhakti in the heart, which we don't sometimes recognize. So from that plane, he is watching the unfolding. We see in small little sections of time.
But we see today also so many Tamil people
Oh,
open to Mother, coming
I tell you, and the
ashram.
bhakti that they have is something just simply too good. I have interacted with many of them. It's like when they speak of mother, sometimes. One I have seen in Odisha it's like a mass movement. And here when they speak of Ma, it's like they can't utter anything else because they are so overwhelmed. That kind of, I know of number of people, and it's so touching. So touching. I mean, there is something, that's why the Lord came here, and I mean, of all the places, He chose this as the seat of His tapasya. It's not a joke. So, what did He see? What did Sri Aurobindo see? Overpassed were the leaden formulas of the mind. So, formulas of the mind is can be, cannot be, ifs and buts. They are all overpassed because mind is what? It's just a form giver. It's like if a building is being constructed and you ask one of the workers, tell us about the plan of the building, and say, sir, please ask the supervisor. You go to the supervisor, he say, well, I am executing this, but the owner, he and the designer, they have not told me everything. They have just told me only this much. So he doesn't know what the interior will be like, what paint, everything he doesn't know. He is just for the construction. So mind is like that. Even higher ranges of mind, Sri Aurobindo describes it as archmason. It's archmason is masons who are, laying they are giving form. But if you ask these gods, even you have built this body, human, what is going to dwell in it? They'll say, please, that only the Lord of Lords knows. What do we know? We are just giving forms. And then one day the Lord says, okay, done. Now I am going to give the final touches. So the formulas of the mind, all that mind has conceived, because very often we try to pit this with that Shastra, this philosophy, this thinker. Sri Aurobindo is a gentleman, so he doesn't ever say, oh, I have seen it, you keep quiet. But sometimes I have said like this to people, somebody saying, Sri Aurobindo says this, but in my opinions, I say, please, excuse me. Opinions don't count where there is the vision from the highest. Opinions have a meaning when we are at the realm of opinion. There are different planes of everything. There is a plane of opinions where we have opinions. And we all know that opinions are nothing but ignorance. But we all have our opinions. We feel very happy about our opinions. And Shobinda says that opinion has nothing to do with truth. At one place he says logic is the worst enemy of truth. That plane of consciousness where all the formulas, structures, systems, philosophy have collapsed. You are trying to put it against, vis-a-vis Bertrand Russell's philosophy, and so it's, like that.
And so often I hear, I can't agree with mother.
Okay, don't agree. Don't agree. Perfectly fine. What difference will it make to the divine? If there has to be a difference, you are the one who is, what a beautiful opportunity. And I tell you, in this world, otherwise, even spirituality doesn't give us hope for this world. If it is just an escape and nirvana, what kind of absurdity is it? And what a hope. Logically, one should be willing to put everything at stake for this one thing, which whatever time it takes is the one thing worth trying and attempting. I am saying very impersonal, even if you don't have that kind of full faith. But, there is a possibility worth putting everything at stake. Because other than that, there is nothing which is worth it. At least nothing worth the labor of our humanity. I would feel absurd. Either sitting for some nirvana which makes no sense of this world, or doing good, or doing some, building a big house and buying Mercedes. It's all meaningless.
Or being a philanthropist.
Being a philanthropist. You are only perpetuating your ignorance. So that's the plane from which he is seeing. Overpowered the obstacle of mortal space. Because normally what do we see? We see within space, material space. But there are other space-time where events are being formed. Before they precipitate here, they are formed in the subtle physical. They are passing through the vital. Beyond that, the higher mind. That's where the gods who control our destiny, they get the command, the word, create this scene. So they look for material, create a scene. And then we find ourselves. But it is going beyond all that. It's literally beyond those who have to enact out a scroll of destiny. Normally these form makers, they will just create the stage. Okay, what do you want? This lightning, that. So they'll create a stage. But they don't know the entire script. And now here is Sri Aurobindo watching the entire play, entire script. The unfolding image showed the things to come. So it is showing what is going to happen in the future. And now we see what one has known but doesn't want to acknowledge, that before the dance of Parvati, Lasya, its new creation, Lasya, there is the dance of Shiva, Tandava, which destroys. And without destruction, there can be no new creation. So those who are afraid of destruction, they are afraid of new creation. Any form, even a battlefield, if you think, it's very bad, if you shrink from it, then you are really saying that let things continue as they are. Sometimes mankind has to go through battle. Can't help it. Kurukshetra is the law of life. And Sri Aurobindo reminds us, even in everyday life, every step you take, you tread upon many insects, creatures we don't even realize. Some of the Jain sadhus, they don't put their feet on ground. Why? Because it will kill. But they have found a novel way. So they'll put some cloth or something, or patta, and then you put your feet. As if people below the patta, people I'm saying will not die. Like in Leh Ladakh, the Buddhists eat yak. Because they don't find other things don't grow, so they have permitted yak eating is permissible. It's not considered an offense. So human mind has found various ways of, it's a fact. If you are living every breath, even if you put a mask over your face, you are still breathing. With every breath, you are destroying countless creatures. We really go. You can't. That's how you are part of a chain. The thing is, there should be no conscious will for injury. That is non-violence. You're not wanting to consciously, willfully destroy because it's going to give you a selfish advantage. But where it's a larger good, destinies of nations at stake, you can't keep your hands clean.
Mother asks us to take a leap into the unknown.
Yes. So, there is a dance of Shiva which he sees. A giant dance of Shiva toward the past. What has to go, has to go. And there is an experience of the mother about Shiva, where Shiva asked the mother asked him, all the gods, would you tie to a human body to help in the new creation? But they had also gathered. Jagat Janani is doing a new Leela. They used to come when mother would sit for meditation. So she says, none of the gods agreed except Krishna, who agreed to tie himself to Sri Aurobindo. Shiva, he said, I won't take a human body now, but in the supramental world I'll come and take a body. But I can help you. So what is the help? He says, I can break the physical ego, which is so difficult. And mother says, I was grappling with it, and he started dancing and breaking the physical ego. And the mother goes and tells Sri Aurobindo, I have a very funny feeling. All my cells are scattering into the vast, and it's so delightful. Sri Aurobindo says, no, not yet. And the whole experience stopped. Much later, in 61, she would experience this after the supramental manifestation. And then she would connect with that experience, say, now the time was ripe for the physical ego to be dissolved. No, not yet. So, giant dance of Shiva. Shiva is the great destroyer, the inconscient creator he is called. And he is also called as the Lord of transformation, because unless you destroy, you can't make room for the new creation. There was a thunder as of worlds that fall. We can't imagine what it would be. Earth was overrun with fire and the roar of death. Clamoring to slay a world his hunger had made. Very interesting lines. And actually you see, I keep reminding, if you see all the avatars, saints, sages, if you see the maximum darkness ever in the history of earth, you will see it during the late 1800 end and the first half of the 1900, 20th century. You see it, it's there. Two great wars where millions of people died. Epidemics, imperialism, positivism, Freudianism, you name it, and the Asuras were ruling. Nowhere, no point of time in history you will see this kind of darkness. But during that time, when the world is engulfed in darkness, Sri Aurobindo is writing Savitri, invoking the sun of the future. Because he saw this as the giant dance of Shiva. In one of his letters to mother in Japan, he writes that, no, not to mother. Mother, he wrote something else of the battle. But later on, he says to one of the disciples, it took mother and myself 10 years to clear the past of the earth. They had to do this.
And that was working through the two world wars,
working
through
through the two
communism,
world.
Stalin.
Yeah, all this. And to mother he writes, the whole world is vibrating with that same thing, and there is nowhere where one can find respite. The whole earth is responding to one single law, the law of destruction and darkness. And then he says that about his own yoga sadhana, he says, my own sadhana is something like the trench warfare of Europe, where you make 1 inch advance and you are pushed back another inch. Trench warfare, when two enemies are entrenched, and time to time they emerge and fire shots and they again go into the trenches. Like that border movie toward the end. Somebody will dare to go out, but he may be shot. So that kind of trench warfare, Sri Aurobindo is describing his own state of yoga, because he's taking the whole earth. He says that 1 inch forward, 1 inch backward, that is how the yoga. So that is the part, 3-4 lines, then we'll stop. So death has built a world and it swallows. So what can be destroyed? Whatever is given to the abyss. Mother gave the same message, men, countries, continents, the choice is imperative, truth or the abyss. So somebody asked, what is abyss? And then she says that right now there is much hypocrisy and duplicity and deceit in international dealings. She speaks that. And then she says that the abyss is lust for power and greed for money. This is abyss. So if you have these, but then she says, but for the aspirant of the yoga, there is nothing to fear. Somebody who has given himself to truth, what is there to fear? But these two things, power and money, are the abyss. He speaks of that. So death has created these things and it will devour it. It's as simple as that. There was a clangor of destruction's wings. The Titan's battle cry was in my ears. Alarm and rumor shook the armored knight. So that's the first part of the unfolding image. But there is another part. Through this dance of destruction, something beautiful is also going to take place. So we'll read it coming Saturday. It's nice, as we decided we'll go a little slow in this canto because it's one of the pivotal cantos and very beautiful and powerful.